So we've made it to the end. This journey started on April 24th, and we've made it all the way here. We're talking about the season 1 finale of Defending Jacob, episode 8, where we see the trial ends, but we also have a very controversial ending. We're going to talk about that and much more. Episode 8 was titled After, series finale. The trial comes to an end, but with unexpected circumstances. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my series finale review, discussion, breakdown, spoiler-filled conversation about the series finale of Defending Jacob. We got a lot to unpack in this episode. We got some things I want to announce in this review. There's a lot going on, so I'm really excited to be here. But before we dive into it, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you follow me on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to this channel, definitely subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel, but I also really appreciate it. And you know what you got to do in the comments, guys. After you've seen this series finale, episode 8 of Defending Jacob, titled After, let me know all your thoughts. Did your theories come true? Your pros, your cons? Let's talk about the season as a whole. For my book readers, you can now comment all your spoilers. Let me know the difference between the book and also the how the series ends. So definitely want to know what you guys are thinking after this episode. So little story here, little laundry list of things I want to get through before I get into this discussion here. First and foremost, these past 8 weeks watching the show with you all has been fantastic. Reading your comments, interacting with you all, talking about theories, talking about our pros and cons has been such a great experience. I can't thank you guys enough for the continued support. With that being said, I do want to continue these videos with Defending Jacob. One of which I want, and I've been doing this for a couple shows. I did this with The Outsider on HBO as well as FX Devs. I'm going to do a watch along, meaning that I want to watch the series finale, episode 8 with you all. I'm thinking either, let me know in the comments, Sunday at 5 p.m. Central Time or Monday evening, maybe around 7 or 8 o'clock. Let me know which day you guys would prefer. And we're going to do a watch along. We're going to break down the episode. We're going to talk about it live on this channel for a live watch along of the series finale of Defending Jacob. Then I'm going to make another video probably by the end of this weekend or maybe early next week. I'm going to do a video talking about the differences between the book's finale and the series finale. So I'm going to do a video for that. So I've really been enjoying this journey so far, and I just can't get enough of this show. So expect those things to come in the future. But again, I can't thank you guys enough for the support. So let's unfold this episode. This was first and foremost when I saw, I've been watching this show. It normally drops Thursday night for me, and it's either between like 11:30, 11:50, 11:15 sometimes. So it popped on Apple TV around like 11:20. At least that's when I saw it, and I saw it was an hour and 7 minutes, I believe, and I was just like, oh boy, we're in for a journey, in for a treat. So let's just do as I've been doing these last few weeks. Again, this is a spoiler discussion, so if you haven't seen the episode, go check it out, come back, press pause on this video, come back and watch it. But we're going to break it all down. So starting off with this recap, first and foremost, I made a video a couple days ago titled, explaining the ending of episode 7, but also predicting who the killer was. So one of my predictions in regards to how this finale was going to maybe shake out was that Pat Leonard was going to get, he was threatened. He was, forced to confess that he killed Ben, and I was pretty spot on. And a lot of you guys mentioned that as well in the comments, but something that someone had mentioned, I don't have their name in front of me now, but I know they had put a little spin to that theory that I made was that, Pats was forced by old Larry to make that letter, but at the same time, he was going to be killed after making that letter to kind of put a cap to the case. And that definitely came true. We saw that, Pats was hung. He hung himself and left a confession note, and Lori and Andy are obviously, they were very emotional about hearing that news, and obviously they told Jacob, and he was happy about it. In the first 10 to 15 minutes, right, it's just like, oh, this is a little uplifting. I love that they put that in front of the episode versus lingering it on, and it's 30 minutes, 40 minutes into the episode, and we're kind of still on the edge of our seat, what's going to happen with the trial. So I love that they took that approach to just address it right up front, because everything else that unfolded really kind of ended in a pretty satisfying manner, and we'll get to that. But anyway, we see the first shot of Jacob. He's sitting there. He's smiling. I mean, I don't think I've seen Jacob smile in a couple episodes. I mean, it's very, very minimum amount of smiling from Jacob. But we see he's smiling. You see Neil's reaction. The jury, everyone in the court is kind of applauding and clapping. I thought that was interesting. But the case was officially dismissed. I love how it starts. Again, it just sets the stage off where it's just like, hey, you think this is going to be a happy ending, But no, it is not, my friend. So, kind of continuing on, we see the Barber family, says their thank yous to Joanna, and Ben's dad, comes out of nowhere, right? We see Ben's dad is walking up to them with a pretty furious pace of walking, and he just shouts to them that I know you did it. And then we got our family protective agency guy, old Larry, comes out of nowhere and slams Ben's father's face into the car, and, he tells him, what do you want me to do with him? And Lori says, let him go, whatever the case may be. And then another thing that came up that I had mentioned, that connection between the gentleman father, O'Leary, and, Billy, Bloody Billy, they were connected. So the guy officially says that, he was an old friend of his father. And we see, that Billy's in jail smiling after he found out the news. But again, going back to what I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, that, Billy and that gentleman were connected, whether it be, Billy was in the mob and Billy had his connections, but that was something that I had mentioned a couple weeks ago, that they were connected to each other. So I'm glad, again, that they're addressing all these things that's been on my mind for the last few weeks. So we see shots of Lori sitting, and, throughout the show, right, we're seeing these doubts. Lori's having these doubts. She's looking through the baby book. She's crying. She's emotional. And we're going to talk about Lori and do a character breakdown in this video. But I know a lot of you all have not necessarily liked the performance that Michelle Dockery is giving, but a lot of people haven't been on Lori's side in regards to her reactions to, Jacob and the trial and everything. So we're seeing her kind of handle the situation. And again, this is look, again, I think Michelle Dockery's performance, again, I've been praising, and, deservingly so. Chris Evans has been incredible in the show, but Michelle Dockery has been par for par, and maybe in some people's eyes has been the best actor on this show. And I wouldn't blink an eye at that, because she has been doing such a great job. The conflict, the confusion, the being upset, being mad, being, just so confused, and just, the situation she's in. I just love the performance. But, we see that they, the Barbers, she's looking through the baby book, and again, her thoughts on the trial, and how she thought that Jacob was guilty. Again, I just love the performance. So we see the Barbers eating dinner for the first time. They're going out to eat. They're cracking some jokes, and then, they mentioned that they want to go on this trip from Mexico, which they mentioned earlier in the season. So we see Andy officially decides to quit his job as well. They're gonna move to another state and try to start over, right? So that was all. Again, everything so far has just been like, they're setting the stage for this, from the surface, we think that everything's going to be fine, but we're going to get to that point. But we see Andy starting to think about the situation, right? He's in his car as he's leaving his job and says his goodbyes or whatever the case may be. He sees that wrench, right? And takes him back to that night, and he's starting to put the pieces to the puzzle together. So Andy goes to visit his dad, Billy, and he flat out asks his dad. I love when Andy's just like, he just asks us the question, right? That's the lawyer in him, right? He's just like, did you do it? And, obviously, did you get old Laurie involved? And obviously his dad, Billy, playing by the code of not snitching, right? Especially being in jail. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, son. Of course, J.K. Simmons with his great performance, Billy, just like, I don't know what you're talking about. But obviously, we see the scene play out as they're kind of having this conversation. And we see, again, O'Leary is pointing the gun at Pat's, and we see that he's forcing him to write the letter, which we'll get into that conversation in this video in regards to the confession, Leonard, Jacob, who really killed Ben. We'll talk about that later. But, we see that, Billy denies the situation. But as we see the scene play out, he forces Pat to write the letter. But then once Pat writes the letter, see that he ultimately kills Pat. He puts a rope around his neck. He makes it seem like it was a suicide, but we obviously know that wasn't the case, which is, again, I'm going to be making a video about the differences between the book and the TV show. But we see that he does kill Pat. And obviously Andy is just torn up about this. I was kind of confused. I was very surprised that the cops weren't at Pat's house, like 24/7 surveillance, especially since he was he was a potential suspect in the murder case. So I was surprised that there weren't cops surrounding him at all times, but that's just kind of a little minor thing. But we see that he does kill him. We look at Andy, and then again, that scene, that intensity that Andy, Chris Evans gives, where it's just like he just wants to explode and just cry with emotions, because he knows that this guy on the other side of this gate, his father, did this horrible thing, right? And like I had mentioned, that was my theory a couple weeks ago, that when Billy spoke to him in episode 7, like, are you sure that you think that Pat is the one? And Andy says yes. Andy essentially in his head right now, he's thinking, I just got a person killed because of what I told my dad and what I, the information I shared with him. So definitely an incredible scene. And again, Chris Evans, Michelle Dockery, Jaeden Martell, J.K. Simmons, they've all been doing a great job in the show. So I love that scene. Again, to seeing the inner battle going on with Andy at that moment. And we see, Billy says his kind of his final words, saying that, I wasn't a good dad to you, but you now have a choice to be a good dad to your son moving forward. And, all they get the little emotional moment there. And Andy just says, I'm done with this, and walks out. So, a question I want to know from you guys in regards to in that particular moment in the show, would you, if you found out that information, again, no judgment, this is a safe zone, but I just want to know, how would you guys have handled that situation if you were Andy? Would you have immediately went to the police station and told the cops what you just learned? Or, as we kind of see in this episode, would you have just internalized it? Would you have kept that secret? Again, not your personal family, but if you were Andy in that particular situation, what would you have done? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. No judgment, no right or wrong answer. I just want to know what you guys would have done personally. That's the conversation I want to have with you all in this video in regards to family and being loyal to family and things of that nature, and blood is thicker than water conversation. But that's a tough question, man. But I want to know what you all think. I don't know. I'll have to be with Andy in a little bit in regards to just thinking about the situation, thinking about all the facts that you have at your disposal. But we all know that Andy has been very, very gun-ho on the idea that his son did not kill Ben. He does not want to accept the fact that this murder gene is in his family and his son ultimately kill someone like his father did. So very, very interesting comments that I want to read from you all in regards to what would you have done if you would have found out what Andy did. So we see that in very different tonal shift, right? We see that the barbers go on their vacation. It was just very visually different, not jarring, but just it was bright and beautiful. And they're in Mexico versus the dark and gloomy of everything that we got in the show so far. So very different change of pace. But we see Jacob meets a 16-year-old girl by the name of Hope, which is someone that is in the book. Again, I'm going to be making a video about the book and more particularly about the book's ending versus the series ending, but that is a character that was in the book. So we see Hope, and by the way, I keep saying book. I haven't read the book, as I had mentioned in my very early reviews. I just was in a rabbit hole. When I saw the finale, which was like 2 a.m, I went to Wikipedia. I read the different comments about the how the book plays out versus the series. So again, I'll be doing a video of that here pretty soon. But we see Jacob. We see they become close friends. There's a little bit of friendship going on there, and Andy and Lori are just like, oh, this is great. We're finally moving past or making the steps to move past what previously happened. But things weren't going to shake out well with Miss Hope there. So we see Jacob and them, he asks his parents to go to this New Year's Eve party. They agree to do so. And, Lori and Andy are at dinner, expecting that Jacob's going to be home a little bit later, but no, Jacob's is home a lot earlier than expected in the hotel room watching TV. Seems to be kind of distraught, seems to be a little upset. They ask him, hey, is everything, Andy says, is there trouble in paradise? And Jacob's like, what are you talking about, Dad? I didn't want to hang out with her. I didn't like hanging around the people getting drunk and music and all this stuff. And I'm just thinking in my head, something happened between Jacob and that young lady Hope, and something bad happened is what I'm thinking. So at this point, I'm thinking in my head, something terribly happened. Something bad happened to Hope. Hopefully, Jacob didn't do what I was thinking he was doing, which is kill her. But we'll talk about that here in a bit. So we see the next morning they have breakfast. We see Jacob is approached by police officers saying that Hope has gone missing. They obviously, the first thing that Andy and Lori are probably thinking, like, oh boy, not again. Like our son beat a murder case already, and now he's involved in another one. So just thinking again how Lori's processing this information, how Andy's processing this, but also how Jacob is handling the situation. So, Lori brings up and she says that he left his shirt at the beach, and we see Andy thinking like, what did you just say? And that's something to think about too, about that whole obviously we know how things played out with Hope, but I know going back to the difference between the book and the series, that was a very interesting little tidbit that they added in there just to kind of kind of misdirect you with the situation. So we see later on in that scene, Andy's visually upset. He's drinking, he's on the balcony, he's sad, he's upset, and then he tells Lori the truth, finally, right? This is like Andy keeps a lot of stuff in. He continues to lie to his family, which we'll talk about that at the end of this review, but we see that he tells Lori the truth. Obviously, Lori is very upset about that, about the news, about finding out that Pat's died and was killed due to Billy and the gentleman that killed him. So that was obviously some big news. So, good thing is, out of this whole situation, Hope was okay. She was out with a gentleman that was older than her, and they were going to probably, do some really unfortunate things to her. But luckily, one of the roommates had called the cops, and, obviously she was fine, which is good. But at this point, the damage has already been done. Lori's already thinking in her head that, not only has a man been killed for her son, obviously Ben's been killed, but now another girl was killed. So she was just, obviously, this is a lot to take in at this moment. So the damage is already done to Lori, and she's just already in the mindset like her son is a killer, right? So she lives in a house full of liars, whether it be Jacob, whether it be, Andy. So again, for those that haven't been on the fan or on the same side as Lori, I can see some of your criticisms, but I have been so fascinated by this Lori character because, again, it's a conversation that needs to be had in regards to, is it just like, do you always have to stick by your loved ones just because they're your family? When you're, this is just a conversation in regards to the blood being thicker than water. We're all human beings. At the end of the day, we're human beings, and then we're born into a certain family and lineage and all that stuff. But that doesn't always mean that even when your family does something bad, you don't always have to stick by them. And that's something that I really like about this particular story, is the complexity of that situation. If both of the family members, Jacob, were defending Jacob's, innocence, with it being Lori, with it being Andy, and both of them were like, no, our son's innocent, it wouldn't have made for a compelling show. But for the fact that we do have a parent, Andy, that's willing to do whatever it takes to show his son's innocence, versus Lori, who has been the mother of this child, who's raised this boy with her husband, and she sees the faults, she sees the wrong that he's doing. So I love that kind of duality of those two characters. So we see Lori goes to Ben's parents' house, and I'm thinking at this point she was going to maybe either confess or just kind of maybe confine in the mother to see how she's doing. But we see the mom is obviously broken. She's drinking, she drops her glass, she picks up the glass, squeezes the glass, and there's blood. So she's just numb. She's gone. I don't know where the husband is at this point. I assume that their relationship is probably on the rocks in regards to everything that just kind of went down with their son. But at this point, I think Lori just kind of sees, not only essentially metaphorically speaking, that two boys were lost when Ben died. Obviously, Ben was physically killed, but then Jacob also died. He died inside, right? And Lori's just like, the shell of the son that I've raised is no longer with us, right? So that's how I kind of took that scene, which I thought was really powerful. So, Lori takes, here's the big moment, guys. This is where things really kind of shake up, and this is where things got really, really controversial for a lot of people in regards to this situation. So kind of playing out the scene, Lori takes Jacob to the barbershop, which is kind of funny, the barber family going to the barbershop, little dad jokes there, but I'm a dad to a dog, but either way, we see everything play out. We see that she's taking them to go to the barbershop. She asks him directly. First she says, I was afraid to ask you just because I didn't know how you would feel, how you would look at me, and in the mix of all this, we get a cut scene between the conversation in the car, but then Andy's packing up his stuff, and then he notices that the baby book is thrown in the trash. And Andy at this point is just like, what's going on? Why am I not able to reach them? What's going on with Lori? Will she do something to Jacob? And as we see the scene play on, guys, Jacob's on his phone, not really listening to her, his mom, and Lori says, did you kill Ben? And he's like, wait, what? And then they're just going back and forth. She's speeding at this point. It's raining cats and dogs. And she asks him, did you do it? I don't believe you. And even Jacob's kind of just like, yeah, okay, I did it. I'll do whatever you want me to say, Mom. Just slow down. And we saw the scene play out, guys. She intentionally, Andy obviously says that she didn't do it, but she clearly pulled the car over, ran into that wall. At this point, again, I didn't read the book. At this point, I'm thinking they're both dead. And then everything starts to make sense. That we see that the flash forward, the trial that we've been watching all throughout the season with, Neil asking Andy questions. It's not about necessarily Jacob killing Ben, but we end up finding out, this is kind of a big reveal, that this whole case, this indictment, is not against Jacob. It's against Lori, and they say justice for Jacob. They're indicting Lori in the case of Jacob being potentially killed by his own mother. So that was a pretty big moment, because again, I'm thinking this whole time that, it's Jacob. Jacob killed Ben. Did Jacob kill someone else? But no, this whole situation, this whole time, this whole flash forward trial scene has been about Lori attempting to kill her own son, Jacob. So I thought that was just really, really crazy. But again, that moment was really intense. At that point, I got to know you guys' thoughts in the comments in regards to not necessarily if it's right or wrong what Lori did, but the decision she made to attempt to end her life, but also her son's life, just because what was going on internally. So again, I kind of know a lot of people that's not a Lori fan. That is probably going to take you guys off the edge. There's no coming back. Lori is just dead to you guys, which again is great television, because again, it creates the conversations, it creates the, the complexity to the character. So I definitely understand you all. That's just like, Lori is the worst mom of all time. The decision she made was, no matter what you think about your son, there's no reason to kill someone just because of how you feel about them. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. So, we see at this point that Lori has called Joanna. She's called the psychologist the night before everything goes on. But we see, everything that played out. Again, just a really, really powerful moment. But, she tried to kill. She wants her family back. We see that she's in the hospital. So as we kind of wrap up the episode, we see that Lori's alive. She seems to be a little bit out of it, right? Because she's talking to Annie and saying like, oh, I hope, we see Jacob's in a coma. Who knows if he's going to live or die, if he's going to remember what happened, if he's going to start from scratch. Who knows what the situation is going to be after Jacob wakes up, if he wakes up. But we see Lori is saying to Andy, it looks like he's going to be okay. Maybe he's going to, the doctor's optimistic about the situation, but I hope he doesn't think I did anything. I just want my family back. And I'm just thinking to myself, is she lying, or is she just distraught? Is she just in shock? Does she not remember what happened, that you tried to kill yourself and also your son? And then a big moment, this is a big moment for Andy, right? Because he's been doing this all season long. He lies to her. He says, no, everything's going to be fine. Forget about that day. Don't worry about that. And that shows you, again, Andy is just willing to do whatever it takes to protect his family that is breaking apart right in front of him. So, the last moments, it goes back to the whole conversation. This is a big moment, guys, in regards to who actually killed Ben. Again, I'm going to make a separate video about this, but I think Jacob did officially kill Ben. Now, the show is a little bit different from the book, but and the book's a little bit more definitive in their answer. But for me, based on the facts of the show, again, the characteristics of Jacob, the story that he wrote, and how he knew about Ben being killed and how he handled the situation, I think it's pretty blatant that he was the killer. We talked about Sarah, we talked about Derek, we talked about Pats, we talked about maybe Ben's dad. Another character that kind of went under the radar that could have been in the conversation was Matt, because Matt just up and left and went to Florida. I had mentioned a couple weeks ago that maybe Matt and Pats had this a little bit more of a intimate relationship than when Matt led off or said to us. I think that there might have been some jealousy, and maybe Matt could have been the one that killed him just because, my intentions being shared with someone else. We obviously know Pats had that picture of Ben, but I don't think Pats did it, guys. I don't think that he did it. I do believe that Jacob did kill Ben. And if that girl Hope wasn't found, which again, in the book's a little bit different storyline, look it up, but I'll be making a video about that. But, if she wouldn't have shown up, I think Ben would have been, or Jacob would have been responsible for her murder. But I personally think the way that this story was told, that it is pointing towards Jacob did kill Ben. So just wrapping up the episode, I thought that they was going to maybe give us a scene of how it all played out, which they did not. I don't know if you guys saw HBO's Sharp Objects with Amy Adams, but I thought that they were going to probably do that, because I'm looking at the top of the clock. I'm like, okay, there's only 2 minutes left. Are they going to show us exactly what happened? Which they did not show us who killed Ben officially and how it all played out. But if I don't want to spoil anything, if you guys haven't seen HBO's Sharp Objects, again, with Amy Adams, great show. But without getting into the details, the way that they ended their show, in the last 2 minutes, they tell you who the killer was, and they have like this kind of post-credit scene where they actually show you the murdering happening. I thought that Defending Jacob was going to do that for a second, but they did not do that, which I know some people probably weren't happy about the actual scene being shown to us to give us a definitive answer who did that. And that is a very interesting point. I'm going to kind of wrap up this video here. I'm going to do a watch along, do some other videos, but just kind of wrapping it up. When it comes to the question about open-ended questions being answered or unanswered, I'm actually okay with that in this particular series, because again, the whole thing about the show was how this affected the family, how it created this divisiveness between the mom and the dad and Jacob. And I think I kind of like the way that the show ended in regards to, did he do it or did he not? Again, I'm pretty firm on Jacob was the killer. Again, if you all think opposite. That's totally fine. I think that's the beauty of this show. But personally, I think Jacob was responsible for Ben's death. But kind of wrapping this up in regards to some criticisms I have about not necessarily the finale, because I'm going to tell you guys right now, I love the finale. Every minute of it, I love how they address things right up top, how they did some character development and kind of that back and forth with Andy and Lori when they were on vacation, and then that moment where Lori decides to do what she did, and the ending there, I thought it was fantastic. But in particularly with the season, my cons with the show, I think the lack of development from supporting characters such as Duffy, Sarah, Derek. I would have liked to have seen maybe Ben alive and see Ben interact with these other characters to kind of get a little bit more understanding on the dynamic of how he treated Jacob, how he treated Sarah, how he treated his parents in particularly. I would have loved to have gotten more from supporting characters. And again, going back to Neil, I never really understood the hatred towards Andy outside of just being jealous and ego and pride, but I would have liked to have dove deeper into the supporting characters. So that was something that I wish was a little bit more developed within the show. Lori's backstory, it would have been interesting. Let me know if you guys think about this. It would have been a little interesting if Lori's was Billy was Lori's dad, and there was some connection there, and then maybe that's why Lori was just like, she knew that Jacob did it because she went through this as a child. I don't know if that would have played differently from some of you guys that they didn't like Lori making that kind of definitive decision that her son was guilty. But I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more backstory about Lori's family, right? Like, whoever her parents are, like, you guys aren't going to visit your grandson who's being charged for murder. I would have liked to gotten a little bit more backstory with Lori. Again, Michelle Dockery, I thought she did a fantastic job in the show with the performance, but I would like to have gotten more story from her and her family situation. So that's just something I'm a little nitpicky there. I would have liked to have seen the Barber family pre-murder of Ben. Like, I would have liked to gotten more scenes with them happy and, maybe a scene of them growing up. We obviously saw the scene when Jake was a kid and was trying to, put a bowling ball on a kid's head, but I would have liked to have seen their family dynamic before this trial took place. And then I do feel like, I know you guys said that, between episode 4, 5, and 6, I know some of you all said that they felt like some of those episodes were filler. I don't see it that way, but I do agree that episode 4 and 5 was a little bit repetitive, and they probably could have made that into one longer episode and taken all the good bites of those episodes and made it into one. So maybe one less episode would have played a little bit better from the narrative speaking. But besides that, kind of transition into my pros. I thought the story was fantastic. It was engaging. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I couldn't wait to see the next episode, which is always a great thing about a show, right? But I really want to highlight the directing and the performances. I thought the show was really, the cinematography, the score, the intensity, the look, the feel, the atmosphere of the show was fantastic. So the creators did a great job of doing so on the production side of it. But then in front of the camera, Chris Evans as Andy Barber, Michelle Dockery as Lori Barber, and Jaeden Martell as, Jacob Barber. Fantastic performance. J.K. Simmons did a great job as Billy. Would have liked to have seen him maybe involved more a little bit, but I appreciate his performance. But those three main leads, the main Barber family, Chris Evans, give him some awards. Give Jaeden some supporting awards. Give Michelle Dockery some awards. They all did a fantastic job. I love I'm a big Chris Evans fan. I love seeing him, obviously, Captain America all day, Team Cap all day. Love him in those roles. But this just goes to show you guys, Chris Evans is no one to mess with when it comes to this acting stuff, guys. I can't wait to see what he does next. I know he was a producer on this show. I'm excited to see what he does in the TV realm, but obviously in movies as well. Fantastic performances, Andy Barber, this father that just couldn't accept the fact that his son, which I say again, did kill Ben. But I love his performance and the kind of the line for his family and doing whatever it takes to protect his family. I thought he did a fantastic job. But again, I cannot go without saying, again, Jaeden Martell did a great job as Jacob. You just didn't know what was going on in the kid's head. I would have liked if the show would have given us a little bit more of Jacob and his psyche and what he was going through. But again, I know that the show was really kind of focused on the family, the dynamic of the family, how it kind of destroyed them. But Michelle Dockery, man, like, again, I haven't seen Downton Abbey, but I have seen her in The Gentleman. I've seen her in some other things, and she's just a fantastic actress. I thought she did a great job in the show. I know you all weren't a fan of the Lori character. I personally was. I thought that character was fascinating. I thought that the idea of a family member knowing her son did something wrong and not standing behind him speaks a lot about her as a character, her morals, and just doing the right thing, right? I mean, again, blood's thicker than water. I get it. But if your family member kills someone, they're responsible for that. Not only the killing Ben, but also being responsible for Pat's death, potentially having something to do with what was going on with Hope. So I really like what Lori's character was about. I don't like the decision of killing herself and her son. That's another conversation for maybe the watch along. But I thought overall Lori was a fantastic character and the acting was great. Wrapping this up, guys, that was just my thoughts. I thought the finale was fantastic. The show was fantastic. Stuck the Landing is one of my favorite shows, if not my favorite show on Apple TV Plus. I would say this show, Servant, and Morning Show, and then C, and then probably Dickinson are probably my top 5 right now. But just a show in general, this is one of my favorite shows this far this year. I put it up there with The Outsider, Devs, season 2 of Sex Education, Ozark season 3. Great television show, and I can't thank you guys enough for watching these reviews. This is why I make these videos, to interact with you all, hear your thoughts, your theories, your comments. So thank you all for supporting this channel, supporting these videos. Again, let me know in the comments. Sunday, if you guys would like me to do the watch along, for you guys can tune in and watch it with me. We can watch the episode finale this Sunday at either 5 or 6 p.m. Central Time this Sunday, or if Monday evening works better for you all, let me know in the comments below. Again, like, share, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm going to be watching that Netflix Space Force with Steve Carell, so I'll be watching that, so keep an eye out for that. I do have my first ever live Q&A Ask Me Anything tomorrow, so that's Saturday at 3 p.m. Central Time. Again, more content coming for you all. Let me know what day works for you all for that watch along. Keep an eye out for my different what's the difference between the book and the show and the finale. Keep an eye out for that video. But thank you for watching this, and we'll see you soon.